In my family, you learned early on that silence was how you survived. Not peace, not love, but survival. In our house, words were weapons, so if you didn't speak, you couldn't be wounded. My name is Evelyn Carter, and for nearly 2 decades, my father told everyone that I failed the army. I never corrected him. At first, it was just a misunderstanding. Then it became a story, and eventually, it became my identity. I grew up in Fort Bragg, where the sound of helicopters overhead was as normal as birdsong. The army wasn't just a career there. It was a religion. Uniforms were worn with pride. Failure was whispered about in hushed tones, and quitting was unforgivable. My father, Colonel Richard Carter, believed there were only 2 kinds of people, those who could carry weight and those who broke under it. He had carried weight his entire life, a West Point graduate, 2 combat deployments, a chest full of ribbons he never ever talked about. He raised me like he was training a soldier, long before I even knew what that meant. No crying, no excuses, no softness. When my mother died, I was 12. At the funeral, I stood beside him in a black dress that was 2 sizes too big, my hands locked tightly at my sides. People came up to him and said they were sorry. They looked at me and said I was brave. My father said nothing. That was the first lesson I learned about silence. It was a shield. When I told him I wanted to join the army, he didn't argue. He just looked at me for a long time, his eyes searching for something, and then he said, "Don't embarrass the uniform." That was his version of a blessing. I shipped out at 19, my hair cut short, my back ramrod straight, my heart quiet. Basic training was designed to strip away everything that made you human. Then, it rebuilt you into something useful, something that followed orders. I didn't stand out. I didn't complain. I certainly didn't shine. I endured. That's what I was best at. While other recruits chased recognition and stripes, I learned how to disappear into the background, to listen, to observe, to hold information without reacting to it, like a stone in my hand. That one skill, the ability to stay calm while everyone else was panicking, is what changed my life. Halfway through my 2nd year, I was quietly transferred. There was no ceremony, no announcement. It was just a closed door and a man in a crisp uniform who slid a folder across the table toward me. He said, "You didn't hear about us. You won't talk about us. And if we do our jobs right, no one will ever know you were involved." And just like that, I entered Army intelligence. The work wasn't heroic, not in the way you see in movies. It was long, grueling hours spent in dimly lit rooms. It was sorting through intercepts, recognizing patterns in chaos, listening to voices without faces. I learned how to map human behavior like it was terrain, how to predict movement before it even happened, how to stop threats without ever having to touch a weapon. And I was good at it, very good. But excellence in the shadows earns you nothing you can show your family. There are no medals for preventing a disaster that no one knew was coming. The first time my father called me after my transfer, he asked where I was stationed. I told him, "I can't say." He asked what I did. I said, "I analyzed data." There was a long pause on the line. Then he laughed, a short, unkind sound. "So, clerical work." I didn't correct him. The familiar weight of silence felt safer. A week later, my aunt called. She asked why I'd left the army. I told her I hadn't. She sounded confused. "But your father said you washed out." That was the moment I realized the story had already been written for me. And silence once again felt so much easier than waging a war onto fronts. Years passed. Operations succeeded quietly. Threats were neutralized before they ever became headlines. I watched cities sleep peacefully at night while my team and I redirected disaster somewhere else. There were no medals. There was no applause. Just encrypted confirmations on a screen and the steady, low hum of machines. Then one night, a name appeared on my screen. Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter, my younger brother, my father's pride and joy. I hadn't even known he'd enlisted. We hadn't spoken much since I left home. He was everything my father admired: loud, fearless, visible. A real soldier, in my father's eyes. He was assigned to a rapid response unit operating overseas. And suddenly, my work wasn't abstract anymore. The patterns on the screen, the voices and the intercepts, they all led to him. The operation was classified, time-sensitive, and incredibly messy. A compound, hostels, and civilians trapped in the middle. I wasn't on the ground with a rifle. I was the voice in the ear of the team leader, the map behind the eyes of every soldier moving through those dark corridors. Every single decision filtered through me. We rerouted the extraction chopper. We changed the entry points based on new intel. We delayed the breach by minutes that felt like hours. Then, the call came through the static. Objective secured, civilians safe, but there was one friendly casualty. Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. Then, with a steady hand, I authorized the final report. Mission successful. I signed my name, and I never told my father the truth. I never told him that I was the one who made the calls that saved everyone else. The funeral was held back home. Uniforms filled the church. There were flags, salutes, honor guards. My father stood perfectly straight, receiving condolences like they were medals. When people spoke about Daniel, they used words like hero, brave, and born to serve. Then, someone asked about me. My father sighed, a sound heavy with disappointment. She tried the army, he said, just loud enough for those around him to hear. But she couldn't handle it. A few people nodded in sympathy. Someone murmured, that's still respectable. I stayed seated in the pew, invisible. Silence had protected me my whole life. I thought it could do so again. But what I didn't know was that someone else had come to that funeral. Someone who did know my name. Near the end of the service, a man in civilian clothes stood up. He was older, with a calm but commanding presence. His posture was unmistakable. A general. He walked to the podium and cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the silent church. There is someone in this room, he said, his voice clear and strong, who carried more weight in that operation than anyone on the ground. The room shifted. People exchanged confused glances. My father frowned. The general continued. She planned the extraction. She anticipated the threat, and she saved every single civilian life present that day. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Then he said, Captain Evelyn Carter. Every head in that church turned. I felt hundreds of eyes on me as I slowly stood. No uniform, no visible rank, just me. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was absolute. The general looked directly at my father. Your daughter didn't fail, he said. She succeeded so completely that no one ever noticed. After the service, my father found me outside. For the first time in my life, I saw him at a complete loss for words. I was wrong, he finally whispered, the words barely audible. I just nodded, not in forgiveness, but in truth. Years later, I still work in the shadows. I still don't correct most people, because some stories aren't meant to be loud, and some strength doesn't need witnesses. Silence didn't make me weak. It made me effective. They thought I failed. The truth was I never stopped serving.